Welcome, wonderful class of IT-301. I am going to today go over a do-while loop. Now remember we talked about do-while loops and while loops. Today I'm going to concentrate on do-while loops, and then in the upcoming day or so I'll be making one strictly with a while loop. If you want to know what is the difference, you cannot wait another minute. That's very simple. A do-while loop will go into the loop at least one time because the condition is at the end. That's called a post-text. A while loop is a pretext, so that means it might never, ever, ever go into the loop itself. So we're going to be doing a post-text, which is a do-while loop. Right now on the screen, you can see that we have the dummy case over here with your name up here, so you can put your name and all this other stuff. For time's sakes, I am not going to be filling in all of the code in here, so I will just begin with declaring a couple of variables. If you do not remember what all this nonsense is upstairs here in the very beginning, the include allows us to actually use items such as C in and C out and a whole bunch of other things. String allows us to manipulate strings. IO_manip allows us to format things in a specific manner. And C-type allows us to convert characters. Now the C does stand for character, so it's different than a string. A character at a time. So you'll see more of this. Let me put a space here and a space here just to make it look a little bit nicer. So I'm going to begin with declaring a couple integers. So the very first integer that we need, and I'm going to declare them all without having to go enter the name, int the name, int the name, int the name. So I will start with a variable called start number. Now I'm making a mistake here on purpose. And notice that C++ does not care, Visual Studio does not care. I am getting an issue here because I don't have a semicolon, I have a comma. But remember, we're doing everything in camel case, which means the first word is all lowercase, and any word after that begins with a capital letter. So now we have start number, that looks good. Then the next thing is number itself, and you'll be seeing what all these things do. And we need end number, and we need an increment. Notice I'm initializing everything. And last is going to be counter. So the purpose of these variables here, this is going to be a starting number. So for instance, we're going to be doing all the numbers from 1 up into a specific point. And the end number is going to be user input. The start number, we're going to, for time's sake, just hard code it. The number itself is something that allows us to copy it from the very beginning so we don't ever have to change start number. Again, when we get in the loop, you'll see that. An increment gives us the other option. I don't want to increment by 1. I want to increment by 2. I want to increment by 3. So for instance, if I wanted to do all of the even numbers from 2 to 100, I can have my start number start as 0, because technically, depending upon who you talk to, 0 can be considered an even number. Again, depending upon who you talk to, some of them just say it's non-existent, but let's just say for now it is an even number. And then we would want every other number to be displayed, so we would increment by 2. But we're going to do it a different way to determine whether or not something is an integer, and whether or not it's odd, and whether or not it's even. So that's very simple. And I'm going to copy this from something so I don't have to. And let's go down here, and we're going to put this loop will display numbers from 1 to the ending number. So that takes care of that. Now notice that I don't want to start at 0. It's telling me display numbers from 1 to the ending number. I always do 0, but I don't want to take a chance ever of having something that I'm not aware of. So I'm just going to click on start number equals 0. And let's change that to equal 1, because I did say from 1 to whatever it is. And then what I want to do is get a user input, and I'm going to put it above the start number. I always like to initialize things just before the loop. So see out what is n number, and notice the question mark and then a space. Then we'll do the infamous cin, and we're going to do n number. So now we have start number equals 1. And now I want to start my actual loop. But before I do, I don't want to mess with start number. So I could technically make this a constant, but then we're going to be doing other things where I want to be changing the start number and make it flexible for you. So you'll see that later on as we go along. So the very first thing I want to do is use my actual variable number to be the number. So all I have to do is initialize it to start number. So now once we start the loop, start number will be 1 and will always stay, but number is going to increase. So I'm going to do my while loop now, while. And this actually is going to be a pre-one. So you can see 2 for the price of 1 in this video. So while number is less than or equal to n number. So I'm going to show you why we're going to do that instead of doing a post test. So we have number is less than or equal to n number. And I know I spelled it wrong. Then we're doing our brackets. And I'm going to do cout. I can do this. So I want to see out the number itself. And I want to print it on the next line. So now I have to increment the number. If I were to do this, this would print 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, because the number is never being increased. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you 2 different ways to increase it. I can do number equals number plus 1. Of course, then you would want the parentheses so you don't lose points. Although that works, that is not the preferred way of doing things. So what happens here, we are going to take number and add 1 to it, and then assign it back into number. So if number is 1, this in here equates to 2, and then it gets assigned back into number. But we're not going to do that. This is the better way to do it. It's just number plus plus. Likewise, if you want to decrease something, you can do number minus minus. And then I'm going to show you a way of doing it, but I don't want you to do it that way because it's confusing. And you'll see, again, once I get done, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So I will put my little hints here, while, and let's see what happens when I run it. Assuming I didn't make any mistakes, it should run. So what is the n number? Let's just do 20 to make it simple. And then you can see 1, 2, and it ends at 20. So why are we doing the pretest? And you will see, and let's see if this works. What happens if I put in minus 5? Nothing's going to happen. So that would test right over here while n number is less than here. So this particular one, I'm not going to go through the loop if it's going to fail the test. So let's not worry about that. Now what I want to do is comment this out. And this is not a good way of doing this. So, but I do it sometimes, but I really don't prefer it. I think it's just too confusing. I could, if I want to, increase it here. So what would happen is C out. Now, I want to emphasize that because the plus plus is after the number, this basically says print the number and then increment it. If I did it down here, it says print the number, but we're doing the increment here. That's a very dangerous way of doing it because something could go wrong and it'll be very hard to find. But I just wanted you to see this in case you saw it in somebody else's code. So let's run it. And we'll do the same 20. And notice that works. Now, let's make a mistake and put the plus plus here in front. So here's the problem. So what's going to happen here is going to increment number first and then display it. So notice the plus plus is before. So let's run it. And we'll do the same thing. Now we have 2 and all this stuff. So that obviously is not going to give us. So this is why it's always better to do it this way. So that takes care of this video over here. So what I am going to do is cut it off right here and we'll just make this part 1. Let me recap what we have here. We have a while loop. Now notice that there is no semicolon after the while loop. A do loop is a little bit different in here, and you'll see that. So we have and the do while loop is actually the correct name of it. So you're saying do while this condition. So we have a while loop that's checking for is number less than or equal to n number, and if so, we're going to print the number. We're going to go to the next line. Then we're going to increment the number. So I will now end this video, and we will go to part 2 after I finish this one. So sit back and relax. More to follow.